Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Munch and Learn. I'm Elizabeth, the Public Programs Coordinator at the Dixon. We'll go over a few reminders, pieces of housekeeping information before we get started. So Munch and Learn will return in person to Dixon's Auditorium in November. Per usual, we are recording this session, and you can find each week's talk published on the Dixon YouTube channel. So if you ever want to revisit a talk, you can find them there. And since we're recording, we ask for everyone to remain on mute the entire time. If for some reason you accidentally unmute, please don't be offended if we mute you. If you have any questions during the talk, please feel free to type them in the chat, and then afterwards I'll read them to our speaker and we'll get those questions answered for you. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Russell Wigginton. Dr. Russ Wigginton serves as the president of the National Civil Rights Museum. He assumed this role on August 1st and brings vast experience in education, fundraising, operations, and community engagement. Prior to assuming this role, Wigginton served as the Chief Post-Secondary Impact Officer for Tennessee State Collaborative on Reforming Education, or SCORE, from 2019 to 2021, where he led the organization's work for post-secondary access, retention, and completion. Previously, he served as the Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students at Rhodes College from 2017 to 2019, where he oversaw the college's co-curricular experience for students. From 2006 to 2017, Russ served as Vice President for External Programs and Vice President for College Relations, where he established and implemented institutional strategy for the college's engagement in Memphis and beyond, and oversaw the college grants, foundations, and government relations, alumni relations, communications, career services, and continuing education departments. Russ taught 8 years in the history department at Rhodes, specializing in African American and community history. He has published a book entitled The Strange Career of the Black Athlete, African Americans in Sports, as well as articles and essays on African American social and labor history. Russ has served on numerous civic boards, including the National Civil Rights Museum, Memphis Zoo, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Facing History and Ourselves, Ballet Memphis, Arts Memphis, Urban Art Commission, St. George's Independent Schools, Promise Academy, and KIPP Schools. Russ graduated from Rhodes College with a BA in history and earned a PhD in history from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And it is such a treat to be with you all this afternoon. And I have to acknowledge my good friend who leads the Dixon, Mr. Sharp, Kevin Sharp. And Kevin and I have a long relationship, and he's taught me a lot about art and leadership. And so I'm grateful that I get a chance to engage with you all a bit this afternoon. I would like to spend a little time talking about a little bit more about me in the context of the museum, and share with you, I am effective on Monday, I think it is. I will be a full 90 days into this role. And so I've had a chance to get some insight and get some perspective, and would like to share with you my general vision for the National Civil Rights Museum, and then certainly feel free to, as Elizabeth said, to provide any questions. I'll leave time at the end, and hopefully I'll be able to respond to some of your questions or thoughts or things you might want to know more about. So as Elizabeth mentioned, I have a prior relationship with the museum. I served on the board here for about 10 years prior to assuming this role. But I have an even longer relationship with the National Civil Rights Museum. When I first returned to Rhodes as a William Randolph Hearst Fellow, as I was completing my dissertation, 25 years ago, 1996 is when I returned to Rhodes. One of the first things I did was connect with the museum. As a junior faculty member, you can imagine I'm working on syllabi to establish a new course in African American history, US history, and then a course that I developed at the time was civil rights history. And as I'm working on my syllabus, I'm thinking about there's this place right downtown that's in its infancy. It's only about 5 years old, right at 5 years old, but it's called the National Civil Rights Museum. And if you're going to be a student in a civil rights course, and if you chose to go to college in Memphis, we should take advantage of that history in a up close and personal way. And so I developed a relationship with then President Beverly Robertson, and established an internship with the college, and that began my relationship with the museum. So the opportunity, when you fast forward 25 years, the opportunity to serve and lead at this special organization is a tremendous joy for me, and I'm having a lot of fun already, and I'm thinking a lot about the possibilities and the responsibility that I have in which to take the museum to the next appropriate level. My predecessors, Beverly Robertson and Terry Freeman, as you all probably are aware, were outstanding leaders who situated this museum in a wonderful way for me to come in and to contribute and to continue to raise the sights and the possibilities of the museum. So when I think about, we've all had our various, particularly those of us who are leading nonprofits and other organizations, we've had to make adjustments during this last couple years related to the pandemic. And I want to give you just a little snapshot of the status of the museum, a little bit before the pandemic and our current status, and how we've been able to maneuver and adjust and persevere. Some of you may recall about 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, the museum underwent a significant renovation, $27.5 million renovation to be exact, in which we really brought the museum into the 21st century when thinking about how do people experience museums, how do people want to learn about civil rights, and have it be something that is more than an intellectual exercise, but it's something that they can feel. If you've never visited the National Civil Rights Museum, I can assure you that it will be a transformative experience. There are certain aspects, and they touch different people in different ways, but there are aspects of our museum that evoke emotion and evoke frustration for some, perhaps, sadness. But at the end of the day, I think what we do really well is we tell a comprehensive story about an era that was part of the transformation and part of the growth and development of this experiment that we call America and democracy. Our focus on social justice, our focus on being a catalyst for positive change are key ingredients to that experience. And those things will not change. And I think that that backdrop has served the museum well. Going with the conclusion of that renovation, it really helped to catapult the attendance of the museum. So prior to the renovation, in a good year, we probably had, approximately 200,000 visitors a year. The renovation certainly gave us a boost, and it was completed right before the MLK 50, Martin Luther King Jr. 50-year celebration. And that really helped to give us more of a national profile. We had a national and international profile. We had media and people from all over the world who wanted to be in Memphis for those events. That led to 2019 being, by most measures, pretty much all measures, the most successful year ever for the museum. We had approximately 330,000 visitors at the museum that year. Something that you may find interesting when you look at the profile of our visitors. 70% of our visitors come from a distance more than 100 miles from Memphis. So that could be everything from a day trip, but or much longer than a day trip. I think the real key to that, the key point for that is we attract people to Memphis. And of course, if you come to Memphis to the museum, there are other amazing sites and experiences to have, including the Dixon while you're in Memphis. Of those visitors, about 1 in 5 of our visitors are international. And again, when you think about the ability to draw people from all over the world who many consider it an important pilgrimage that they have to make to Memphis to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as a byproduct, learn about a movement in our country that did and continues to influence how we live our lives today. So with that backdrop, we entered the pandemic in pretty much the same way everybody else did, with an idea of it being probably a modest bump in the road that continued to grow and cause us to have to adjust how we operate. Fortunately, we were able to, even with a few starts and stops around being open, we were able to present an experience for people around the world to learn more about the museum and about what we represent. And so we created several virtual platforms by which teaching and learning and experiences could be had through those respective vehicles. And we were able to gather data and see that actually some of our programs virtually had stronger attendance and participation than they had when virtual was something less common than it is now. And so we're going to continue to build on that opportunity as we slowly but hopefully surely get back to more in-person activities. During the pandemic, if you think about it touching on 2 fiscal years, we managed to still maintain a pretty robust physical attendance. We obviously are following COVID protocols and have some limitations on number of visitors in the museum at a given time and that sort of thing. But we recalibrated our budget to expect approximately 100,000 visitors, and we've exceeded that. Thankfully, people have wanted and needed, I think, for a multitude of reasons, including their personal fulfillment and reflection, to physically be in our space. And we're grateful that we've been able to provide that. Some of you may be aware that this year we celebrated our 30-year anniversary, and it coincided just a couple of weeks ago with our 30th Freedom Award. The Freedom Award is our effort, one of our efforts to celebrate and lift up leaders across the country and across the world who exemplify a commitment to social justice or an effort to make the world a better place through their activities and actions related to civil and human rights. At this year's Freedom Award, the first time we've ever done it fully virtual, we honored former First Lady Michelle Obama. We honored the Poor People's Campaign, and they were represented by Reverend William Barber and Reverend Theo Harris, who are leading that effort across the country currently. We also gave a special recognition to Darnella Frazier. And you may recall that Darnella Frazier was at the time, the 17-year-old high school student who filmed the tragedy of George Floyd incident in our country. And we wanted to lift her up and celebrate her courage and her willingness to be involved and be engaged as a young citizen. She is graduating high school this year, and she's had as you might imagine, a pretty dramatic and traumatic last year or so. But we wanted to lift her up and honor her. And certainly we had a full slate of entertainment and speakers, including former Freedom Award winners Bernice King, the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Soledad O'Brien, who's a former Freedom Award winner, the important journalist in our country, and Jeffrey Canada, who was or continues to be a transformative leader and pioneer in education, K through 12 education, and has the commitment and resolve to help all students have positive and legitimate and equitable education and school access. So that Freedom Award, doing it virtually for the first time, was a little nerve-wracking. I mean, if you think about the fact that in my first week on the job, I had to essentially make the final call on whether we would do that event, how we would do that event. Would it be virtual? Would it be hybrid? Or would it be in person? And we chose to have it virtual, and it came off as a tremendous success. It actually expanded our audience as well. And we feel really good about the possibilities of how do we, once we're able to go back in person, how do we also give people the opportunity to celebrate and be part of such an inspirational event. That actually leads me to talking about my vision for the National Civil Rights Museum. Again, I've had the opportunity to follow two tremendous leaders who left the museum in an amazing place. We are on solid footing as far as our programs, our ability to operate in a fiscally sound manner. And I think we're at a point where this particular moment in our history, which I would argue is the next iteration, if you will, of the civil rights movement that we traditionally talk about. We are in a particular moment in our history where civil and human rights are at the forefront on so many minds. And I think we have both an obligation and an opportunity to be an important voice in this particular moment. I also think that the National Civil Rights Museum is a place that that can stand the test of time in the future, because it is the only cultural organization that's connected to civil rights in this country, where that's built or established at the place where such a transformative, world-changing event or situation occurred. I'm excited about the expansion of more cultural organizations around the country. I've been asked locally and nationally, how do I feel about the museum that is open in Jackson, Mississippi, and the one in Montgomery, and certainly the museum in DC. And I'm very excited about those. I consider those to be, and we all are in communication with each other. We're in partnership. They have distinctive aspects of what they do, but none of them rest on the site where such an important event happened. And we have the benefit of that. And so when you think about that, we have the benefit of, we have some postcards that are literally just, if you hold them up, they're pictures of room 306 with a wreath in front of them. And there are so many people in this country and around the world who recognize that as the National Civil Rights Museum, the place where Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, but also the place where his legacy for justice and righteousness and reconciliation lives on today. And we're going to build from that platform under my leadership, and with the support of a tremendous team that I've joined and an outstanding board, to take the story of the National Civil Rights Museum and the Civil Rights Movement in a more intentionally national space. I'd like to focus on 3 areas where I think we have the opportunity to be excellent, and the opportunity to be a national thought leader and a convener and an important placeholder, if you will, for how we as a country continue to debate and struggle and work through issues and challenges in our country. The first area is education. We have a robust education program now, but I think we have the opportunity to contribute in a very unique fashion to the education arena. When you think about the collection of archives and papers and stories that we have at the museum, and if you were to think about and because it's comprehensive, if you were to think about what could a national civil rights curriculum look like, we're on a journey. We're going to be on a journey to find out. So with the benefit of national scholars and thought leaders and the best minds in that particular space, we plan to embark on how to create a national curriculum connected to the civil rights movement. We want that to be not just a historical lens, but we want that to be very much connected to the present. I like to think about the National Civil Rights Museum as a living, breathing, vibrant museum today. that utilizes lessons from the past and respects and honors the dynamic and the context of today. So the interplay between those things is something we will be pursuing through an education lens. Another area that I am very excited about has to do with arts and culture. As Elizabeth mentioned, I have been involved pretty deeply in the arts and community of Memphis, and have served on several boards and have really immersed myself as part of my immersion, if you will, into Memphis over the last 25 years. It's come through the arts community, and we're such a rich, vibrant place for the arts. So much so that I think we often take it for granted, those of us who've lived here a long time. And when you travel and when you get exposure to other places, you begin to realize the importance and in the fabric of our city, arts and culture. Well, that's actually true here at the museum. We have collections and very distinctive aspects of art and artistic expression that connect back to the traditional era of the civil rights movement. And that is one of the most understudied and underappreciated aspects of the civil rights movement, is the role that art and artistic expression played in inspiring and motivating people to make the kind of sacrifices they did to help our country become a better version of itself. And so, again, I think capitalizing and thinking about the historical components of that and merging that and intersecting that with the kind of what I would describe as the rebirth of the Harlem Renaissance that's taking place right now. If you think about even the wonderful exhibit that's on display at the Dixon now, how important it is for people to really begin to grapple and to understand and fully appreciate the contributions of varied people to our artistic world. And then when you intersect that with some of the emerging artists and forms of expression that may connect with human rights and social justice today, I think we have an opportunity to be a catalyst in that space on a national scale. So we will be undergoing and investigating and engaging in that way. And then the third thing is really think about and as sort of an umbrella of economic empowerment and economic mobility. And I think this is a really important area for us to delve into more deeply. As has been mentioned, I am a historian by training, so I do have a certain kind of appreciation for context, and I think it's really can be powerful if we remember the reason why Dr. Martin Luther King came to Memphis. He came to Memphis because of the economic injustice that sanitation workers experienced in our city. And so when you think about some of the conversations and some of the work being done for a more vibrant economic opportunity for more people, I think we have a unique lens and unique opportunity in which to contribute and participate in that dialogue, and in those hopefully shifts to provide more people with an opportunity to be economically sustained and reach their full potential. So we will be identifying particular ways in which we participate in that conversation on a national basis. And the last thing I'll mention is the importance of Memphis. So what I don't want anybody to think is in our efforts and in our desires to have a higher national profile, that means we're somehow going to forget about this dynamic, complex, and complicated, and sometimes challenged community that we call Memphis. We can't do any of those other things I just mentioned without the strategic partnerships, engagement, and a sense of pride in this particular city. Memphis is crucial to how the National Civil Rights Museum operates every day, and Memphis sets the tone for how we will engage nationally. And so I am fortunate that by being here as long as I have been and doing the kind of work that I've done, that I'm aware of the tremendous institutions and resources of this city that can intersect with the National Civil Rights Museum. And so there will be a particular emphasis on maintaining and expanding those relationships in our city. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be happy to open it up for some questions, and if there are some, I think I've seen a few in the chat, I've learned a lot from working on a college campus for as long as I did. And I actually get my energy and I'm fueled by the possibilities and the power of our young people. And they actually motivate me, and they inspire me, and they energize me. We have a program that's called Keepers of 306, and it's a program that's really targeted for people in our community who are age 40 and under, who I think of as these are the people who many are leaders now, but they're certainly our leaders of tomorrow. And so I'm giving particular attention to the Keepers of 306 program. I've established a monthly meeting with that group because we need their energy, we need their creativity, we need their insight, we need their push for us to maintain relevance in our local community and in our broader society. So I'm excited to, you might call it, infuse the important role that young people in our community play. Because if we totally just rely on them to have an interest in reflecting back on things that happened prior to them living, I think that makes us vulnerable. We want them to have an appreciation for the past, but I think one way to ensure that happens is to meet them where they are today and give legitimacy to their experience and see where the patterns and the themes and the commonalities reside from yesteryear. So once again, I couldn't be more excited to serve and honored to serve as president of the National Civil Rights Museum. It's an institution that is really important in our country. It's an institution that I have the responsibility of keeping relevant. It's an institution that I feel like can be a critical part of the national conversation to help our country keep at the forefront humanity, justice, and decency. And I'm 90 days in, and what I've learned is if we can do that, then we will be making a difference in Memphis, and we'll be making a difference in this country, and we will certainly be making a difference also in the world. I'll stop there. And Elizabeth, if there are some questions that I might be able to address, I'm happy to do so.
Okay, great, thank you so much. So our first question comes from Joanne Donaldson. She's asking, will you make the recording of the Virtual Freedom Award ceremony public for the public to view on YouTube or your website?
Great question. We are in conversations right now with some national media outlets that have a desire to partner with us to broadcast the Freedom Award in a national way before the end of the calendar year. We really want to get that done in 2021 because it is our 30-year anniversary. So the answer is we have every intention of doing so. We're still figuring out which vehicle that will happen. We're hoping that it happens on that national stage, but I can assure you it certainly wasn't done for it to be a sort of a one and done situation, and we want the power of that event to be shared for others to experience who may not have had the opportunity to experience it on that day.
Thank you. Norwood Creech says, thank you for sharing your vision and the work of the museum. What does it mean for the National Civil Rights Museum to be a Smithsonian affiliate? And what possibilities does this bring to our community?
Oh, that's a great question. I can't emphasize enough what it means to be a Smithsonian affiliate. I mean, it's certainly in the museum world, it's a sign of legitimacy and also an introduction or entree to amazing partnerships across the country. We're actually in conversations now with some of the with the Smithsonian about being the initial place for a particular exhibit that I can't speak about in detail now, but the fact that they are coming to us as the place where they want to launch this new exhibit says a lot about their respect and regard for us. And again, it's a reminder that that we do have a stage, a national stage that I want us to step fully into. We are going to do that. We're going to launch that, and it'll be sometime in early 2022. Again, that relationship allows us to step in the spaces that that without it would be much harder to do. Really connected to what I was talking about, why I'm so committed to us stepping into this national space in general is, people know who we are, but they don't always fully understand what we do and the attributes that we have and the type of materials and collections and that we have. But it's sort of an interesting interplay. I will say that when I reach out to people, they respond. They know the National Civil Rights Museum. They take my calls and everything. I'll try not to mess that up, but it's it's a fascinating dynamic. And when you're able to step into possibilities and not have to, um, um, well, authentically step into possibilities, it really offers tremendous opportunity. That means I can spend my time really thinking strategically about what kind of partnerships and possibilities can happen rather than trying to convince somebody that we're worth talking to. And I don't take that for granted. It's a tremendous privilege, but I also have a responsibility to do that with honor and dignity on behalf of the museum.
Thank you. So Joanne asks, do you have internships at the Civil Rights Museum?
We do have internships at the museum, and one of my proudest moments, actually, as a young professor at Rhodes, was establishing the first formal internship that the National Museum had with a college or university. And the internship program is an area that I think we can enhance. We are at a place where, when I talk about some of the areas where I think we can go national, in order for those to be successful, we have to infuse what talented young people can bring. We have to have legitimate projects for them so that they can both learn and contribute back to the museum. With my college administrator hat on, what I don't want to have is internships that aren't fulfilling for students and aren't benefiting the museum. And so I'm actually reviewing our current internships and thinking about how we can add more. I'm going to do that slowly, because again, I want those experiences to be rich, fulfilling, and meaningful for the students who participate.
Thank you. Kevin Sharp says, great job, Russ. The NCRM is in excellent hands.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Right. Julian Panescu says, I am a Rhodes alumna, class of '89, but have lived in Virginia for over 20 years. As you may know, education and discussing racism as part of history is playing a large role in our gubernatorial election next week. If you were advising the Democratic nominee, how would you advise him to handle the fear and misinformation about that topic?
That's a great question, and that sounds like somebody who I overlapped with at Rhodes College. It sounds like one of those final exam kind of questions. So I appreciate that question from my peer and colleague from Rhodes. So I think that one of the things, and again, I do think that we have a opportunity at the museum to model certain kinds of behavior, if you will, in national space. So I'll say two things. Number one, I think it's crucial and required that when you speak about an issue that is as complicated and multifaceted and uncomfortable as things like race relations and affirmative action and issues that really can really be divisive. First and foremost, you have to speak with honesty and integrity and authentically. And sometimes that means people may not agree with what you have to say or your perspective. But I happen to be one of those people who believe that when you speak in that way, ultimately what they don't necessarily do is lose respect from you. I think the tenor of the times requires, and if you think about it, when we look back to people who we may admire from the civil rights movement, even if we disagreed with them, if they spoke with honesty, integrity, and authenticity, we still know who they are. And I think that still has value in our country. So we are a nonpartisan organization. And to me, it's so much less about what particular group you may or may not be affiliated with, but we've got to find ways and space to speak to each other and not at each other. I borrow a lot from one of our former Freedom Award recipients, whose name you might recognize, Nelson Mandela. And he talked so much about reconciliation, right? You have to reconcile. And so when I think about what we are doing and need to do as a country, it's about reconciliation. It's not about me proving you wrong. It's about finding space about our own collective humanity. And so I would encourage our leaders to speak with authenticity, to speak with honesty, and to maintain ethics and integrity.
Thank you. Joanne asked, do you have activities or you start to have activities for children at the Civil Rights Museum?
Absolutely. That actually is the area where we saw the most growth through our virtual platform. We have an education, interpretation, and collections department. We actually have a director of education who is an educator and have multiple programs for school-aged children that many schools in Shelby County and in surrounding areas participate in learning about fundamental lessons, if you will, around citizenship and how to be a engaged citizen and how to care for your fellow person. And those are ongoing. And if you look on our website, there are some opportunities for people to engage in those programs. It'll be nice when we're able to do those more in person too. I mean, I have a meeting with upcoming meeting with our superintendent, George Ray, for Shelby County Schools about what the next iteration coming out of COVID looks like for how students in Shelby County can be more fully engaged at the National Civil Rights Museum.
All right, great, thank you. I think we're all looking forward to seeing these programs come back in person, as much as possible or as much as can be done, given the current situation. Norwood asks, has there ever been any discussion around NCRM being a marketing, promoting, or fellowship umbrella for other social justice museums, galleries, nonprofit organizations in the Memphis area?
So I don't know if there's, to what degree there's been conversation, but that is, she's very much aligned with how I'm thinking about that. I think we are uniquely situated to be a place for convening and a place for collaboration. We do have a unique space, I think, in which to draw and pull from multiple types of organizations. And I'm looking forward to the day where we're able to do that more comfortably and physically be in space together. But absolutely. And I have had several calls already with organizations that where there's alignment for potential partnership. I think those can be helpful to all of us, and the people on the call who may know me know I think a lot about philanthropy. I can tell you that the possibilities of collective philanthropic success are much better, particularly on the national stage, when you are in collaboration. And so when you can step forward and demonstrate that you have deep and meaningful partnerships where what your organization does enhances the partner organization, it makes you a much more attractive candidate for resources. And when you're doing that on a national stage where they may or may not know all that much about Memphis, it's especially important that you step to the table, the philanthropic table, with the right partners. It also, I think, when you are in partnership, it allows you to think bigger and think more grand about the possibilities. Sometimes when we're in our own shops with restricted resources and not enough people and all those sorts of things, it's a lot harder to think about being able to do something other than stay on track and get to the next event or the next task. But when you're in partnership, it can free you up to think a little differently and broaden your horizon. So it will be essential for the National Civil Rights Museum to be a partner with high quality organizations that exist here in Memphis.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put out one last call for questions, but thank you, Dr. Wigginton, for coming and speaking with us today. We really do appreciate your taking the time and learning more about the future of the National Civil Rights Museum and its future in Memphis. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to be with you all, and thank you for having me. And if you have not visited the National Civil Rights Museum, we're open for business. We would love to see you. And anybody who's on this call who happens to come, and if I may or may not be here, but please ask if I'm available when you come visit, because there's nothing more important than to interact with the people who are experiencing our facility, and I want to know those people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for attending, everyone. Next week's program will be our first back in person, titled Elzier Corter and the Black Female Nude, with Chantal Drake, the Director of Communications and Development here at the Dixon. If you aren't currently a Dixon member, we invite you to renew or join. We'd be grateful to add your name to the list of members who help make the Dixon the special place it is. We also invite you to come in person to the Dixon and see the Black Artists in America from the Great Depression to Civil Rights exhibit and the Mallory Wurzburger exhibition by Philip R. Dotson. Have a great afternoon, everyone. We'll see you next week. And Dr. Wigginton, please come visit and see the exhibit. We'd be happy to host you.
I can't wait to get there. I've heard wonderful things about it, and I will be there soon.
Looking forward to it. Have a good day.
All right. Take care.